Here's a short story about a dying hollow. Hello, nature's revenge. Took my fun again. Now my race is run on my merry way. She's my rocket pack, tired to my back. Meet me at the sun on my merry way. Oh, he's my friend. He says it's good to pretend. He's got his magic machine. They'll put you down on your knees. 'Cause when you're down on your luck, you throw your hands in the mud. He says these bodies are mine, and all these words are divine. Oh, you stand for the song. Oh, you wanna go home.
Hello, hello.
What's up?
How are you guys?
Good, guys? What's happening, man?
Okay,
What's
nice
up,
hair.
Micah? Everybody here?
We're all here.
Welcome back to another episode of Freethinker Radio on the Conscious Resistance and 90.1 KPFT Houston. Thank you guys for joining us. Of course, we're here every week, and you can find us at thehoustonfreethinkers.com if you want to find out a little bit of our history or just some of the latest episodes of our show. We're also putting this show on Spotify. If you have the Spotify app and you check out Freethinker Radio, you will find us there. So yeah, lots of exciting things going on. What's happening, dudes?
Just hanging in there, living life, man. Trying to stay informed, stay free. How about you? What you got going on down south, the real south?
Mexico is going great. Things are going well. I have heard some disturbing things about potential laws related to vaccines here in Mexico that make me a little worried that I'm going to be doing some investigating into this week. But other than that, it's been a beautiful week. I just got back from driving around the country a little bit, and things are going well. What about you guys? How's Houston?
Weather's
It's like-
wonderful.
Yeah, it's like that one week where the weather's really nice, but still living life.
Cool.
I don't
Well,
know.
we're
We got
all
a lot
about
of stuff
living.
to get
Huh?
into. Let's jump into it.
Yeah, I know we're all about living here and staying free of all the craziness. I want to say thanks to everybody who is tuned in right now. We are live on the Conscious Resistance YouTube channel. We're live on the Conscious Resistance Facebook, Houston Freethinkers, Freethinker Radio, Wake Up News, and the Derrick Bros page, as well as on the Conscious Resistance app at Float, for those of you who use Float app. And of course, this will be played on Friday afternoon in Houston, Texas on 90.1 KPFT. And if anybody who is listening to this, whether live or the recorded version, you want to support Freethinker Radio, go to kpft.org, make a one-time investment into community-supported, commercial-free, corporate-free radio in Houston, the fourth largest city in the country, and that makes sure that we can continue to bring these conversations. And if you do decide to invest and donate, tell them you're doing it in the name of Freethinker Radio. I guarantee you that helps us out. But yeah, like you said, Johnny, we got a lot to get into. Micah, I know you had a couple of Houston stories, and you want to just start with Houston cop stuff?
Yeah, I thought this was interesting. I mean, I feel like we'd be amiss not to at least mention it. It made it all the way up to Washington Post, and I guess with so much talk about police reform, to say the least. There was a task force in Houston which was appointed during the summer's nationwide protests over racial injustice. And this task force released more than 100 recommendations on how to improve the city's police department. So I think that might be interesting, but I want to see which way they're trying to, focus that energy. The recommendations come as the Houston Police Department has faced scrutiny over a 2019 deadly drug raid that resulted in the death of a couple and the indictments of 6 now former members of HPD, and the termination earlier this month of 4 other members of HPD for firing their weapons 21 times at a man who had been experiencing a mental health crisis, killing him dead in April. This is a formational moment for our city, they say. At least that's what Mayor Turner says. But we'll see, what happens. The recommendations are grouped into 6 main categories that cover community policing, independent oversight, which that sounds like good. Let's see more about that. We've talked about what the outgoing people in the Citizens Review Board have said, and power dynamics between police and residents. What's that mean? Crisis intervention, field readiness of officers, and setting clear expectations for what is expected from officers. And, I think a lot of jobs, obviously we've talked about, the job of being a police officer. So, I think whenever there's a demand for reform, there's like a restructuring, it seems, of, training of the police. And we talked about training of the police and how often it's cited in, episodes of violence from police officers. Turns out the 45-member policing reform task force was appointed in June during the protests. And, I've also posted on the Freethinker radio page the actual document from the City of Houston, the report, so you can get into all the details of it, because there's a number of news articles that mention different aspects of it. And I kind of went to the version because it gives the most broad outline. And I think, after that, we should probably have a little conversation and work into, what it means. They say that more than 7,000 Houstonians submitted surveys to the task force about their impressions. And in this, they said that 24% saw them as very positive, and 25% as positive, 21% neutral, 19% said they viewed the department negatively, and 11% said they see the department very negatively. So, yeah, we've been talking about these.
I want to add to that, Micah, because I saw the documents too. Like I saw when the mayor sent out the press release about this whole situation, and I went through their report, their recommendations, and for one, the mayor's statement clearly says, he called for the formation of this, or at least he was a part of this 45-member thing coming together because he's trying to look good when people are protesting against police violence, just like Acevedo trying to get in front of the cameras. And then he also made sure to make it clear, once this group put out the recommendation, the 45-member task force, that it's up to him whether or not any of this happens, that he's not necessarily going to do any of these things, that he's like, we'll review them, of course, and we'll see if any of them fit with what we want to do, but ultimately, that's kind of on him. And yeah, so I went through the thing. It's interesting. It's honestly, and I tried to be just objective and look at it to see if there any sort of like concrete points that are made, like more body cameras or this or that. But it's really a lot of vague things. Like from most of it is just kind of community policing. Well, what is community policing? It's working better with the people, just sort of things like, okay, it took the cops this long to figure out they should be working with the community and not, you know what I mean? It's just funny that this is supposed to be new information or some new task force that's coming out. But I guess in the end, it's a step towards the right direction. I wanted to follow this up, Michael, with the other part of Houston news, which was the cite and release order. I don't know if you saw, if you read a little bit about this. I was reading the order itself. So Mayor Turner again this week, and I think he's really doing his part right now to show that he's trying to care about police reform and ending unnecessary arrest of people. So this signs an order launching cite and release advocates to keep an eye on, watch on the implementation. So Mayor Turner signed this executive order, so using his executive power as mayor, for a new cite and release program for the Houston Police Department that went into effect 6 a.m. on Tuesday. And according to Turner, quote, the program gives them, offenders, an opportunity to make changes in their lives and face responsibility for their actions without having the stain of an arrest or serving jail time on their record. The policy, which HPD unveiled at a city council meeting earlier this month, offers to give a ticket instead of arresting people accused of 7 misdemeanors, possession of less than 4 ounces of a controlled substance. And I'll come back to that one in a second. Criminal mischief of between $100 and $750, graffiti resulting in up to $2,500, theft between up to $750, theft of a service up to $750, bringing contraband to a correctional facility, and driving with an invalid license. They can now give you just a ticket and let you go rather than arrest you. So when you read that, and this is a pretty blank statement, possession of less than 4 ounces of a controlled substance, that covers a lot of ground. I mean, there's controlled substances means everything from heroin to, cannabis as far as the government's concerned. And so I thought that was interesting. Like, there's no way that this thing can really say that you can now have up to 4 ounces of crystal meth and you're
it sounds like they decriminalize.
Well, it definitely isn't. Like, so I went to the mayor's press release. Let me see if I can pull it up. His press release about it, and then I went to the city's.
Yeah, don't go rolling around in your cars just yet.
Yeah. Don't think that you can just be hitting the streets with all the drugs you want, in your pocket or whatever. So here it is again, Mayor. It's called Executive Order number 1-68, and let me see if I can open this up. Basically, when you look at it, it actually says up to 4 ounces for Texas class controlled substances class 2A, penalty class 2A. And I looked that up, and that is for synthetic cannabinoids, which is really weird because if you guys remember, the spice, which is sort of what it's referring to, like spice is one name of the synthetic
terrible stuff.
Yeah, the things that were really messing people up. Okay, so look, we're looking at the document now. Let me make sure you guys can see it. Right here, it says the following offenses shall be eligible offenses under the catch and release program. Possession of a controlled substance and penalty group 2A if controlled substances is 4 ounces or less. And I looked up penalty group 2A, and I looked several websites. I'm pretty sure, feel pretty confident, because it's not just the city, it's like the state of Texas. And penalty group 2A was synthetic cannabinoids. And I don't know if that was a mistake on their end. They meant to say like cannabis, because letting people drive around with 4 ounces of spice or fake weed, whatever that is, fake bake, the different names that this stuff has.
That's
not a good idea.
Arguably should be illegal. I mean,
it definitely should not be recommended.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, them lightening up on that of all things would be really wild and a little bit just hilarious. But they did the same thing after the no knock raids. They said we would end like chokeholds, and according to one officer we spoke to, they never did chokeholds. So it's just they'll come up with any extra stuff they can tag on to this to make it sound like they're doing more stuff.
Yeah, and it's just weird. I don't know. Like I said, that thing overall, it's probably a good thing. Okay, they're not going to get arrested if you just do $250 worth of damage with graffiti or whatever and things like that. And generally decriminalizing. That's why I got excited. I was like, oh my God, is this like a step towards decriminalization in Houston? Like, okay, Mayor Turner is doing something I'm going to have to support here. And it turns out that it was, I don't know, something else weird is going on. I only have one other Houston story I wanted to mention that's kind of related to that, guys, just briefly, if y'all don't mind. And it's related to, I'm here in Mexico, as you guys know, and as we were just talking about a few minutes ago. And being in America, and the more I've traveled outside the U.S. to Mexico, Costa Rica, and a little bit in Europe, I definitely can see more and more that Americans, that we live in a bubble. We live in, there's so much propaganda about other nations. It's so much, rah America. And especially when it comes to Mexico, there's, the cartels are beheading people everywhere. These are the things that people expect, that there's just violence everywhere and all this kind of crazy things that don't really add up. And I decided, well, I want to know what the crime rate is in Houston. What's the Houston crime rate compared to what's going on in Mexico? And so I started doing some research, and let me see if I can pull it up. Just in the last couple of months, maybe all the way back as far as July, actually, there was an article where Chief Acevedo was talking about how the Houston crime rate has actually spiked in the last year for one reason or another. And one of the points he talked about, and this is kind of an interesting debate topic, because this is one of the issues people are pushing for the mayor and other people to do, the topic of bail reform. So the idea being that poor people are criminalized because of high cost of bail. Let's say you get arrested, or you have a warrant for a traffic ticket that you couldn't afford to pay in the first place, and so you couldn't stop going to work. You had to keep working and keep driving. So you get pulled over, you get a warrant, you go to jail. they put a high bail on you, and then you basically can't get out. And there are people who end up sitting a month, up to 6 months in the county just because they can't pay the bail, when the crime that they were taken in on in the first place wasn't even worth that amount of time. And so people have called for bail reform. They have called for, like, let's, change that and not just criminalize people in that way. But then the opponents of that have said, much like with COVID-19, when we saw people getting released from prison, and not just nonviolent offenders, but sometimes people who've done violent crimes, people have said with the bail reform, people who are actual violent criminals are being let out. They get, a bond, like no bond, so they get to get right out without paying any money or anything like that. And there are plenty of examples of people out on bond, violent criminals going out and committing more crimes, murdering people, raping people, whatever, while they're out on the first bond because of bail reform. And so one of the groups that was interviewed in this article, it's a local group, I think it was actually Crime Watch or something, which is not, anything I really support too much, but they were generally saying, we support bail reform for misdemeanors. We don't support bail reform for felony violent crimes, saying this person should just have a no bond release just because we all want to be equitable and make sure that, there's social justice going on or whatever. So I just wanted to bring that up because that's what I found when I was looking up for Houston's crime rate. Apparently it's going up for the first time, like the highest rate in 5 years or something. And some people are attributing it towards that. Chief Acevedo is saying, the same thing, that basically if we have people going in one door and coming out another, it's just going to lead to more crime. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that whole bail reform? And do you feel like Houston has gotten any more dangerous where you guys are at?
The bail reform is interesting because I forgot her name, but there was I believe a single mother that really kicked that off because she ended up in jail for, I think, 48 hours or longer than that over like some silly traffic infraction. And, it favored people with money, so it wasn't a fair system. So I do favor that. But the crime we did talk about, remember, I guess maybe a few episodes back, we spent some time talking about crime in New York City. Crime across the country in the big cities has been trending upwards. I imagine there's a variety of causal factors. Obviously, letting violent offenders back out probably lets them commit more crimes. So, that's about all I feel on that one. But I do support the bail reform because it was an inequitable situation for people.
Yeah, I don't think anybody should have to, sit in jail for not having money. That's just it can't be a crime to be poor, bottom line. And as for crime in Houston, I don't think it's been too much worse than ever. I have heard of, things happening here and there, but you always hear of things happening here and there, unfortunately, kind of in a big city. So I can't speak to that being too much worse than normal.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people is like, man, like I've had in the month that I've been here in Mexico,
a couple million people here. Some of them are going to be committing crimes.
Exactly. There's going to be criminals everywhere. In the month that I've been here in Mexico, we had like somebody break into a window and smash a window, which that's happened in Houston, downtown Houston, probably every weekend, different cars.
2 backpacks that way.
Yeah. Crime can happen anywhere. But I do find that interesting. And like we talked about, Micah, before when you mentioned New York, I think a couple episodes ago, we talked about how some people are trying to blame it and say it's just because the Democratic cities, the Democratic mayors are, doing this and that. And I think it's definitely more than that. There's definitely, there's the civil unrest kind of feeling in the air. We're not even going to get into today talking about this horrendous excuse for a debate, the WWE cage match to the death between the two buffoons. But there's a lot of sort of unrest in the air. And I think that some people have also attributed crimes, because if you notice, I'm not saying all the protests lead to crimes, but there definitely have been examples where while the protests are going on, mass protests, that clearly, some people take advantage and they loot and they do other things like that. So, it's an interesting topic just to see where we're at as a country. And speaking of that, where we're at as a country, one main story that I want to go into just for a couple of minutes that we have talked about here and there, but we really need to spend more time on. And I guess today's a good day because an important decision was made today. We're talking about the case against Julian Assange, the attempt to extradite him to the United States. And this week, the extradition hearings have been going on for their 4th week in the UK. And we have on screen right now an article from The Guardian, just one story that came out in court this week, that U.S. intelligence sources had discussed poisoning Julian Assange We've also found out so much more about the companies that were involved. We knew a little bit about this one company called UC Global, and their founder, David Morales, who we now know worked directly with the CIA. UC Global and other sort of go-betweens worked with the U.S. government and the CIA, helping set up surveillance of Assange throughout the Ecuadorian embassy, and constantly trying to find new ways, putting cameras in the bathroom.
Did we lose him?
Yeah, I was trying to
Derrick.
wonder if it would catch. I didn't want to step up and say such, but
Yeah, he's kind of got the controller of what's on the screen right now.
Otherwise, we could continue going. We have. I wish I had that one open. I could go to a different story, but I'm not sure how good that is. So we should talk about stuff with our audience in the interim. What about Assange, y'all? Come on.
What do you guys want to talk about while we wait for Derrick to come back?
He's going to edit this out for the FM.
He's been silenced.
We appreciate everybody that does share, thumbs up, comments. It helps us reach more people. We do spend effort each week to get these stories together and actually think about them a little bit and present them. So, every little bit you do to continue the conversation means the world for us. And thanks again to KPFT. There's a lot of bankruptcies. There's a lot of struggling people. We know it's a difficult time. So, we just ask that you do something for KPFT, whatever you can do. It's always like that difficult for KPFT. And you can imagine how much more difficult it is, both for freedom of expression and conversations such as this, as well as an independent, non-commercial, listener-supported FM radio station. So, yeah, I guess we should just stop and see if Derrick's going to come back. He's totally gone at this point.
Yeah.
Let's hit him on the side. Let's see what's going on. I
was going to say, we read this. We could get your opinion on some comments. I just had one, and now I don't have it. Is that Derrick?
That's probably me sending. I see trips out there. Before on here saying, let's talk about local arts, charities, Zoom events.
Everybody asking if we own guns.
Yeah, people need to own guns. Let's talk about local art, charities, Zoom events. I was glad to get out to the farmers market. That was a good thing. I think we're going to have music there again, and that'll be wonderful. People were out able to sell stuff. House
of Jay's actually doing a pizza event now. It's a social distancing kind of thing, so safe guidances for all the people that feel better that way. But our buddy's coming over with a wood fire oven, so if anybody's in the Houston area, October 17th, we're going to be doing a pizza movie monster night. So if you want to come hang out.
For sure. And we always appreciate the music. And I know y'all do a lot with the music over there at House of J and getting the music out. And we do that both here at Freethinker Radio and through KPFT. So we're always asking y'all to share the obscure music that y'all got going on in your town. Get that to us either through music at visionarynoise.com or just reach out to any of our pages all over the place. So that's cool. I don't know. I haven't got a response from Derrick. I think he might have just totally lost the internet.
Just gone into a dark tunnel somewhere and left us to flounder around.
It'd be okay maybe if we had control so we could throw the other articles up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can go through articles, but I don't even know if he's saving it. So will it be used on the FM broadcast? So, I will mention the other stories that we intend to get into. We were talking about those FinSec crimes or FinSec reports last time, and it'd be nice to spend more time on them. But it turns out that the banksters are up to other stuff. Many of y'all may have seen that J.P. Morgan admits spoofing by 15 traders, and they face almost $1 billion fine that they're going to pay rather than go on about their illegal practices and racketeering and everything. It seems like it's pretty regular with these JP Morgan. It's over the last 8 years, 15 traders, they say, have caused losses of more than $300 million to other participants in the metals and treasury market, basically manipulating the price of the metals.
Hey.
Yeah. So banksters are at it. Conspiracies happen.
I don't know when you guys lost me, but
whoa, I hear him. He's back.
You don't know when we lost you? God, you talk so much.
I wish I could go backwards a little way so you could hear.
No,
you were talking about Assange. You just barely got into that. Just start.
Okay,
on
we just
Assange
barely
again.
started touching on it. I appreciate
We started touching on Assange. Sorry, guys.
Don't talk about touching on Assange.
Oh.
At least you're not touching.
I had
on
some
Epstein.
technical difficulties on this side. My bad. Yeah, no, I was reading the article, so I didn't see that it cut out. But I mean, I'll just keep it short then, since we just had it cut out. But
you just had a refresher on it.
The latest verdict is basically that it's. Did we talk about that, or did you guys hear me that saying that it's delayed?
No, we didn't hear anything.
Okay, well, so the verdict to send Assange to the U.S. or to keep him there is now pushed till January 4th after the U.S. election. And we also, I don't know if you heard me earlier, but we heard this week that the American intelligence discussed having Assange poisoned while he was in the Ecuadorian embassy. We already have heard that they've been spying on him for the last couple of years through UC Global. And then we also, the last point I want to make, and then I'll just kind of wrap it up, because the main point is January 4th, it's been pushed off. He's going to be in jail for another 49 days after 8 years in the embassy and 1 year in jail already. That one of the people behind this spying was Sheldon Adelson, who, as you guys may know, is this rich Las Vegas magnate who also happens to be, or was in 2016, Donald Trump's biggest bankroller. And it's interesting that after Donald Trump talked all about loving WikiLeaks and the WikiLeaks and this and that when they were helping him, expose Hillary, after that, now he's been silent. And of course, his administration's going after Assange. And then we find out his biggest bankroller, Sheldon Adelson, was involved in the monitoring and spying on of Assange. So it just seems that if not Trump, people close to Trump sure do have an interest in what Assange is up to. So, yeah, I think that's just – and the last point I made was that I know some people think it's all just controlled opposition. Assange is some fake, whatever, limited hangout. And, I'm willing to have that debate. But I think at the end of the day, as I've repeatedly said, that they're setting precedents that are going to be bad for publishers. They've already set the precedent. They can go after publishers. They can go after journalists. People from different countries, they can bring you here. And I'm not 100% ready to, convinced by the argument, especially like I said, that why are so many people going to the effort of spying on him and monitoring him and trying to get him back here if he is, just part of their operation. Maybe he's an asset and they're trying to bring him home. I don't know. But the point is, whatever's happening, it's not good for journalism. It's not good for freedom of speech. And it's probably not good for any of us. You guys want to hit a music break real quick? And then come back, Mike? I know you can jump back into what you were talking about.
Sounds good.
Cool. We got Johnny, this one is, I know Johnny, you've been waiting for this one, I think. This is from a friend of the show who I've recently connected with. Some of you guys may know, the people out there who like Bad Religion and see Johnny's Bad Religion shirt may know the band Total Chaos, and they're old school punk band. And Rob Chaos, who's the singer of Total Chaos and is still around and is a very intelligent individual who knows what's going on in the world. They had an album put together, but they didn't get to release it because of COVID. So they gave it specifically to Freethinker Radio. So we're going to get to debut a brand new song, never heard publicly before, from the punk band Total Chaos. And it's called War is a Racket. So it's fast. It's a little crazy. See if you can catch some of the lyrics, and we'll be right back.
Millions are lost in slavery again. Back in
Nice.
Up, y'all.
Hello, Derrick. I don't think he can hear.
War is a racket.
Dude, that was one of the first books I ever read to kind of like wake me up. General Smedley Butler talked about how, like, you know,
Welcome back. I can hear you guys.
Welcome back, Derrick.
Oh, hey, there you are.
All right. So that was good. That's good. Total chaos.
War's a racket, yeah.
Smedley Butler.
I'm here. What were you saying, Johnny?
I said that was one of the first books I read. War's a Racket, Smedley Butler.
In the crib.
Yeah. It's a short book, but he just talks
absolutely.
about
So that was Total Chaos. If anybody wants to check that out.
Totally. All right. Hey, I didn't want to go. I got this one story, and it's, I guess since we were talking about police and police reform, I wouldn't mind getting into it just for a second there. And it's out of, it's nation story. It's out of Massachusetts there. I don't know if you saw that one, Derrick, where officer got probation for assault on a teenager, basically grabbed him by the neck and pushed him against the wall, and then basically lied about it in its incident report. And it was the camera, the surveillance footage that showed, because he said the kid walked up and said profanity at him and shoved him in the chest. And that's why he had to grab the kid by his throat and put him up against the wall. But the video showed that the kid did not shove him. So I just thought it was an interesting one because, you know, there's so much violence in the schools that it's these school resource officers sometimes, and they get things like probation for grabbing a 15-year-old and by the neck and putting them up against the wall. Well, if you did that to your 15-year-old, you know what would happen. Probably get a lot worse than probation. Just saying.
Yeah, that's a scary story, especially coming from, you know, even just the other kids that would witness something like that.
Yeah, I think it's something to consider. You know, we kind of make light of it in some ways because we're used to it. We're jaded to it. But, you know, here are young people here, future citizens, people who are spending taxpayers' money to educate them and for these resources officers to keep them safe. And this isn't the only one of these resource officers we've heard of abusing children like this and worse. So I didn't want to let it go. I only because I know there's a lot of things going on, but I think one of the first intersections between the state and the people is as school students. So why would we want any sort of friction there? You know, it just makes things noisier and worse later in life. So
yeah, it looks like Derrick's gone.
He's on super pause, but yeah,
he's just gone frozen.
Yeah. So I don't know. You know, as long as we're kind of stuck in this realm for a moment, I guess 2 years ago, there was one where the individual got probation and it was sexual assault of a 13-year-old. They got probation. They never got, and once they completed probation, they didn't have to be what's it called? A sex offender, even though they had molested a 13-year-old girl in a school bathroom. So that's one of the reasons I don't think we need to let these go at that same level. We might be, you know, if we just saw some HPD guy grab a guy on the street and throw him against the wall.
I just don't see how having police in schools is related to learning whatsoever. You know, like maybe I was in like the generation, like I came from Ohio where we had a school cop, but there wasn't a cop in school. And then I came to Texas and there was a cop in school, and that always freaked me out. And I saw a kid get a ticket for cursing. And so it just seems like such a weird conditioning / you know, just weird flex of like kind of like a money making scheme in some ways. You know, like in Texas you can like charge the parents if your kids don't go to school. So it just seems like getting the law involved would only make things worse for troubled youth. And during periods of time when kids are expected to lash out, you know, like I thought teachers were supposed to have a higher tolerance for that kind of thing. And these consequences were supposed to be coming from the school. They weren't supposed to be so permanent. So like, hey, like real world kind of thing, whereas like going to a detention as opposed to like bringing home a legitimate like ticket from the state to your parents who are already treating you like, badly or whatever. So I just don't see who the hell logically came to that conclusion. We need it. And I mean, obviously the school shootings and all of that stuff, but like, I don't know. I mean, most of the officers at the school shootings ended up, like sitting outside for 20, 30 minutes while it happened. So
yeah, that's true. And I do think it's a rough thing to introduce to the schools. They used to have it where, they weren't at the schools. They might stop by or something, or if something
that's what it was like in Ohio. Like we had a cop that would probably be the first one there if they needed a cop.
Yeah.
And he came and talked to us from the shitty DARE program and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know what we should do with our dear friend here. Someone said Derrick froze. That was kind of funny. Derrick froze instead of bro.
Oh, that is pretty funny. Can someone make that a meme?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think he's under assault from YouTube.
Yeah, but we're cool. We're not popular enough.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. This is kind of lame. I wish we could go into more stories. If
we were either on the radio, we would just keep going on with the stories and not worry about it, and it would just be audio. Yeah, but because we're live streaming here on video, we want to share the documents, and we can't do that. I mean, I could hold it up in front of you.
I have one from CNN that says CDC says COVID-19 death rate is under 1% for everyone but people over 70, which I just thought was really interesting. It's a short read, but it's just really interesting to see CNN finally just kind of saying that when independent media has been screaming it for 3 or 4 months now, been saying that. And it's just crazy. Right here in the second part of the paragraph, it just says it's all still based on approximations, and as part of the update, the CDC also estimates it's missing most cases of coronavirus in the U.S. by a factor of 11. So they don't go and touch on it later, but like if you are saying that the numbers could be inflated 11 times over, then these death rates that are below could hypothetically be, not within the age group, but a total death rate would be 11 times lower because they're not dead.
Or could be in that range up to, right?
I mean, it's a huge, it would be even like the factor of 11 is really large. So it would be that range. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, and they're saying here 0.003% of children 18 and younger who are infected with coronavirus will die. And they just have to word it like that,
How many
children? They will die. Like after and they just say the fatality rate is 0.02 for people aged 20 to 49. Oh, but the children, they will die.
Oh yeah, it's fatalistic. It's not even. It doesn't even step it in with the word "are expected."
And then the older they get, the less serious it sounds. They shorten it up. Just 0.5% of people aged 50 to 69, and don't even mention it after that. And then 5.4, 70 and older. But this is something I kind of pointed out older, and it sounds really messed up. But like I looked it up. The average lifespan in America is about 77 years old, and just statistically speaking, like even just coming from a rational standpoint, like if you were to argue for lockdowns or some kind of measures like that, at this point, I honestly think it would be a lot more reasonable to focus those lockdowns on the elderly community, people maybe who are 50 if you want to be calling it safe, but like 20 to 40 has a very low chance. So I mean, I don't know. I just think it's crazy that other people are, maybe there's just so much going on right now that like these numbers are just not freaking people out, because they went from death to cases to hospitalizations to jumping around. Like what's really important, I
think you're calling for a more rational approach to maybe a pandemic rather than just a knee-jerk reaction of lockdown and mask everyone. Like maybe take care of the at-risk.
9 months. You can't call it a knee-jerk reaction anymore because we've been sitting in it. It's like
they've been preaching that it's good for a lot of people. They've been preaching it the whole time. But yeah, I think that's the point, right? Maybe we should, like, no matter what it is, this or something else could have another at-risk community, right? Other than the elderly or people that have had illnesses before. So maybe we need to make sure we do what we can to protect the at-risk community. You said lockdown. I'm not sure I want to lock down the elderly.
Well, not lock them down.
We could.
That's the terminology
Yeah, I know.
mainstream is using. So if I'm saying like, if you're gonna say, either way, I mean,
oh look, it's coming back.
It looks like he's in a different room as well.
No, I'm in the same place.
He's popping around the earth. He's like showing up in different places. He's in Mexico now. He's in
Derrick in Brazil.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys. What were y'all? I know you were covering the CNN story, Johnny. What were y'all just getting into at the moment? I have a couple more COVID stories.
I pretty much kind of read through it. I talked about how, like, you know, I also pointed out some of, like, if you go to the middle part, it's just kind of funny, their language, like how they say, like, they start by saying 0.003% of children 18 and younger. Since that number is so small, they have to word it like those people who are infected with coronavirus will die. And then the next one, they're just like the fatality rate, you know, and they just like kind of calm it down after that. But I don't know. It's just subtle things like that, like hyping up the numbers.
Well, I heard you saying earlier that it's all an approximation, right? They really can't say hard numbers.
Yeah, it's saying it's all still based on approximations. And as a part of the update, the CDC also estimates it's missing most cases of coronavirus in the U.S. by a factor of 11. So all these numbers below could potentially be way lower, hypothetically, you know. And then fatality rate for those hospitalized. And I just kind of wanted, like, everyone's already seen these and it's CNN, so it's not like you take it with a grain of salt, you know. But like, I just think it's really crazy how they keep jumping around of like what's the important data to be looking at, because it started off with deaths, then it turned into like the whole hospitalization thing, and then now it's just cases, and then now even like these cases and percentages, they're just looking kind of weak. And I don't know. We're just talking about like, when are we going to start being more reasonable about these restrictions? And he's gone.
We just repeated it for him and he's gone. Oh, this is bad.
You know what? You know what? Let's log off and tell Derrick to get his crap together.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, we love you guys. Sorry for the weird.
See, you can't say anything.
That's so funny. You guys are getting the full weird show today, I guess.
What's the blooper episode?
Today's title is called Bloopers.
Can you guys not hear me?
You were gone. You just disappeared. Not just not hear you. Your whole video leaves and everything. You just gargle.
I know that, but can you hear me right now?
Oh yeah.
Okay, all right. So let's just keep going then. It's basically like they've switched from deaths to cases. And the other story that I wanted to pull up, but it's not opening for me, and this is maybe a week or so old, we might have talked about it, but coronavirus testing at Boston lab finds 400 false positives. I mean, I know that we can go back, I don't know how many times over the past few months and find these stories over and over and over. And I've had people trying to tell me, you're just being selective. This is just you're taking a few anecdotes here and there and trying to act as if there's all these false positives. But I mean, we've talked about the UK situation. We've talked about them across the US. We've talked about them in Houston.
Yeah. We talked about them. Boom.
We're talking about it in Houston. We're talking about in Florida, that guy who they counted as a death with his motorcycle crash. PCR tests being ineffective.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been talking about that for a long time. I mean, I don't know. What should we do, guys? How are we going to tell everyone that the numbers are jacked up?
Numbers are jacked up. The fear's jacked up. It's just so many things. Anyway.
So many jacked up things.
And the thing is, so many things are flying under. We keep trying to talk about a couple of the main issues, obviously the police state and the economic situation, which we always have been talking about, but it's been pronouncedly worse and it's getting worse. This whole reaction to, and it's more than the reaction to, but coupled with the reaction to the coronavirus is just destroying a lot of the market and destroying a lot of people's lives.
Stuff that's
So,
not coming back. I mean, that's the worst of it, honestly. I think that's like the scariest part.
Royal Dutch Shell just made announcements to lay off 9,000 more workers, and Disney just made announcements to lay off 28,000.
My mom actually got laid off too, so I mean, it's definitely happening. And
the PPP loans have stopped at this point, and so this is the next wave of layoffs. And they were talking about we're going to get a next wave of virus so we can help. It's just crazy, some of this stuff.
And what do you think? What do you think about the thought that first of all, if small businesses are being cut and hypothetically not coming back, more stores like Walmart and those bigger chains are getting their. Thank you, Rika, for appreciating my mom. She'll bounce back. We'll all bounce back somehow. That's why we need gray markets and black markets. Now's the time.
Also known as free markets in a way.
Free markets. Yeah, free markets. With that, I always laugh when people are saying like, "Oh, we have a free market system now," and I'm like, not really, man.
Not at all.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. No one's traveling, and people, the fuel cost here. Dow Chemicals laying off, Marathon's laying off.
Oh God. Okay, Derrick's sending us articles to cover now.
I guess he wants us to keep going, Mel. Okay. Let's just do the show then. Maybe
I'm gonna try to post. I don't know if we can post it. Can you post the links in the comments? Maybe. We'll try to post the links in the comments, and I'll stumble around. I've read some of these already.
I'm opening the first two that I see.
So RT we have here. Sorry, this is so clunky, guys. We apologize. So RT, they have no jab, no movement. UK MP pushes mandatory COVID-19 vaccine for travel. Suggests Army should oversee the rollout, which that's pretty scary. Let's see what they're talking about. A British Conservative MP has urged the government to draft in the armed forces for the rollout of a mass coronavirus vaccination program, which would include mandatory certificates that allow people to travel internationally. Oh man, I never made it to Europe before they implemented this stuff. Speaking in the House of Commons on Monday night, Tobias Ellwood argued that the mass vaccination scheme is a challenge of the scale and complexity of the D-Day landings in Dunkirk.
That's liking it. They do all this likening it to war and war on COVID, and it's all this rhetoric around it. And that's something in one of those stories you were saying earlier. Will die, but they can't figure out the numbers well enough, or people can't understand them clear enough. So what really is shaping a lot of hearts and minds is all this rhetoric and poetry, or whatever you want to call it, in these articles. So focusing on how they're presenting this matters a lot, because this is how they do it time and time again, so I'm kind of glad that we're getting there with some of these. I see he sent us this one. We do not consent. Thousands rally in London to oppose another lockdown 6 months after Parliament passed the Corona Act 2020, which gives the government powers to impose lockdowns and other restrictive social distancing measures that have been accompanied by stiff fines. Thousands of Britons packed London's Trafalgar Square bearing signs reading, "We do not consent," and "Think before it's illegal." Think before it's illegal. That's a good one. During a rally that was billed as "We do not consent" anti-lockdown demonstrations. The event was organized by a coalition of political groups, and supporters have been galvanized by the talk of another London lockdown by Mayor Sadiq Khan, as well as Prime Minister Boris Johnson's assurances that a lockdown would be imposed if the government felt all other measures had failed. Protests are exempt from the rule of six, a rule that threatens fines of groups of more than 6 people, which has created much aggravation in the UK. Organizers of the rally had to submit a quote, risk assessment, and agreed to comply with social distancing rules, while police told the press and the organizers that the organizers had completed these requirements. The Metropolitan Police promised to crack down on those not wearing masks and violating other rules. They added that enforcement remains a last resort, but will be undertaken if required. Demonstrators waved signs and British flags and cheered as speakers, including several notable conspiracy theorists, in quotes, according to The Guardian, addressed the crowd. Crowds chanted freedom as people whistled and clapped. So around the world, I guess there's thousands of people in different cities getting out there and taking a stand. It says at points, police fulfilled their promise to break up crowds before they began. The protests received a warning from the Metropolitan Police, which said it would intervene if the protesters didn't abide by social distancing guidelines. And didn't we just read that they were immune because of the rule of six, right? Immune to that rule. Toby Young George, General Secretary of the Free Speech Union, expressed hope that law enforcement would allow the group to protest as they did with Extinction Rebellion and Black Lives Matter. Attending the protest, Carrie Dunn, 41, from Bath, claimed her son, Bo, suffered adverse effects after being vaccinated. I've been shouting that mandatory vaccines are coming and no one will believe me, she said. How they just got to that, I mean, I get it, but, now we
have to wrap it up in there.
Yeah, now we can see it's just around the corner. We've never been closer. Another event billed as People's Network and Family Picnic is also being organized by the same activists for Sunday in Hyde Park. It's interesting that they do bring in, that because they couldn't just deliver a thousands rally in London to oppose the COVID-19 lockdown. And, I wouldn't mind.
They have to quote an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah, I'd like to put that final touch on there. They don't quote two other people. They don't just say, gee, one of the persons was there because of these concerns. Another person was there because of these concerns. It's like the only person they spoke to.
But do you know what's scary? She's getting called a conspiracy theorist. At the same time, that RT article, listen to this other quote from that article. This is going on in Congress literally during like the same weekend. Mass vaccine rollout is an enormous responsibility and we need to get it right. I stress that there is a huge scope for this to go wrong if we do not start to plan now. So like they're just like absolutely planning for like travel passes and mandatory vaccines, even if it's not like necessarily mandatory in that sense, but mandatory to travel, and who doesn't want to travel? So it's
no doubt. The world's reeling over all these decisions.
And as they do that, they're literally getting called conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, that was a very interesting article, all the stuff they mixed in. I think a few of these articles we've really been able to see how they craft the story for people.
For sure. Well, I mean, I really don't know what else we can get into that we haven't stumbled through on this.
Derrick says he's coming back in to say, to help wrap up the show. So he'll be getting back in here. I think he might have just been trying to do that.
Okay, well, let's take some comments. What do you guys think about the traveling vaccine passes?
Oh my God, vaccine passports!
Like, how long would you wait, or how long would you wait until you got one?
I'm reading some of these comments because I can't post them up on the. My Suchi Miss says another guy in UK was jailed for 5 weeks after getting gasoline before returning straight home. What the same person said, my friend in Scotland said a 14-year-old was denied her return flight for eating a sandwich at the wrong time on the plane. Don't know how much veracity there is to these things, but these are claims coming to us from, the audience here. We have a cryptocracy, technocracy, and it's getting worse by the day. I think we've heard about that before a few times on this show. Alexander Hamilton, boo, did all he could to destroy bartering, and he died deeply in debt, like Trumpy will, is what someone else said here.
What about that's good too? If you have had immunization shots, you will show positive for many viruses. Just refuse to go along with this lie. We need to stand together as one voice.
That is a good point, because I've been also hearing, and I don't know the validity of it, but that if you've had flu shots, that it can show up like you're past, so they're like, if you've had immunization, if you get flu shots regularly, it could show up. Above that, we got Rika saying better opportunity there for her for sure. I wonder who they're. Oh, for your mom. Yeah, go Johnny's mom.
Yeah,
that's what's up. Kim above it, airlines, so layoff 39,000. And then, of course,
go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. And we do talk a lot. There's a lot of dichotomies going on with this stuff, So I guess Derrick's not going to be able to come back and wrap it up. So thank you, everybody. We're winding down in the last couple of minutes. I was glad. I wish we could play a going away song. Like goodbye. Here's a song. Y'all have a good one, but we can't. So I'm kind of waiting until we hit the 59 1 hour mark, just so that Derrick has something he can edit. And I guess we'll go on through. I mean, there's still a lot more. Fascism was created to combat socialism. Well, they were definitely at each other's throats all through from the 19 teens through now. We shouldn't have any restrictions, someone said. That's kind of an interesting thought. And now even they laugh at propaganda, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it's like weird when you're going back in backwards view. In March and April, the elderly I know locked themselves down. I did all their shopping for them because they were afraid to go out. I saw that a lot in like my Facebook feed from different friends.
Makes more sense though.
I saw a lot of people helping, people, go shopping or stuff like that, go get stuff for people. Or like they post, I'm going to go make my rounds. Does anyone need anything? And I mean, I wasn't there, but I could see, if people were afraid to go out, helping them get the things. So, but yeah. So what's coming on? And anything going on this week, Johnny? Got any pizza parties or anything as we close out?
No. I'm recording with the Dead Rabbits. We're going to have an album coming out next year. So that's cool.
Exciting. Third weekend of the month will be Epicurean Market on Heights Boulevard. That's a kind of nice thing. If you're into any sort of alternative economy, there's people right there. Everything. They might have a lot of things shut down, but these people are still doing stuff. And I don't know. We did it a little while back, and the weather was just so nice. I was so glad to be outside and playing local music because I was just DJing up some stuff, but I shared a lot of really good things. Even some El Jumbotron. That was fun, So, but yeah, let's wrap it up and say goodbye.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in and saying things and being involved. We love you. Peace, Johnny. You have a good one. I'll see you.